Alright, so I've been seeing this a lot, just genuinely everywhere, and I have no idea where this came from or how it originated, but for those of you who haven't heard about this by now, the Miami Heat have recently been linked to Julius Randle, even being said that they are highly interested in him, and this is being reported by Sean Devani. Now, although I would think that Julius Randle would genuinely be a really good fit for the Miami Heat, I have no idea how they get this done. Like, how do you match up contracts with the dude that's he's probably on about 27 million. He took a bit of a pay cut to stay in New York, which was very generous of him. But with the tradable assets that Miami have, they're in a really weird spot right now. I think most Miami Heat fans can, like, see this because they have a ton of really good players. You look at Jimmy Butler, one of the best players in the league. I am a huge fan of Jimmy Butler. I know a lot of people don't have him as a top 10 player, but in my genuine opinion, I probably would have him as a top 10. When I see people out here having like Darius Garland as a top 10, I'm like, you know what? He definitely could be. You know, I'm a big DG fan, I'm a big Cavs fan. But then when I see that they've got Darius Garland as a top 10, but not Jimmy Butler, I think, well, hold on. Even though I love Darius Garland, Jimmy Butler's still a better player than what Darius Garland is, and he's the leader of the Miami Heat. He's by far their best player, and he's on a reasonable contract. Then you have Bam Adebayo, who's also on a relatively nice contract, on about $30 million to $33 million for the time being. You're like, that's a good piece. You got Victor Oladipo, who's on $9 million. He hasn't played much, but again, still a pretty good piece. And then you have Tyler Hero, who's on $27 million, who hasn't been as good or productive this season, but you're still kind of saying to yourself, well, he's Tyler freaking Hero, man. He's still young. He's still got a lot in him. Sixth man of the year. One of the best scorers in the game. Like, legit understatement to say he's not one of the best scorers in the game. But then you kind of look and you look deeper in this Miami Heat team and you're like, jeez, hold on. They've got some terrible contracts. Like, there are two players who are on possibly some of the worst contracts, I think, in the NBA. And I know Heat fans hate that they've got these players on their books. But you look at Kyle Lowry. Man, $28 million for Kyle Lowry's fat ass is just not good. It's just ridiculous. And then Duncan Robinson on $17 million as well, which eventually goes up to about $20 million, is terrible because they literally don't like him and barely play him at this point. So you do say to yourself, well, how are we going to dump these contracts? Like, if the team was to eventually trade, you know, Duncan Robinson, try and match contracts with the team, they would have to throw in a first round pick just because his contract is that bad. It's reasonable. You can do it. But with Kyle Lowry, it's like, shit, this dude's on a max. Like, I know he's only got 2 years left on it, but he's on a max contract for a dude that's averaging you like 13 and 6 and not as good defense and playmaking as what he used to be. It's not great at all, and the Miami Heat are clearly not benefiting of Kyle Lowry. In my opinion, the team is way better when the ball is in Jimmy Butler's hand. So you're just like, well, how do they trade any of these guys? First of all, the Knicks are not going to be wanting Kyle Lowry's dusty ass. They already have Jalen Brunson, who I very much rate as an NBA player. So you first and foremost, you're not going to be able to match contracts there. You look at Duncan Robinson, you're like, well, could the Knicks take on Duncan Robinson? I guess so. He could very much be a, valuable player. But if you give up Duncan Robinson to get Julius Randle, you also have to lose Victor Oladipo because you got to somewhat match contracts, and that's about $26 million right there, which practically covers Julius Randle's contract. So that's, again, pretty fair. You do that. I do think the New York Knicks would value potentially those two players. Even though Duncan Robinson hasn't been that good, I think he can find a role on New York as a pretty interesting shooter, and I honestly believe they would potentially rather him on the team than Randle in certain points if you look at it, because with Randle, he's stopping Obi Toppin from starting. Even though, in my opinion, I see Randle as like a heart and soul of the team, he does make the team worse sometimes, but also makes them better. It's hard to explain. Like, when they need a scorer, sometimes he is elite and will win the games. But when they don't need a scorer and Barrett's popping off, Randle is as useless as tits on a ball. He's just shit. There's like no like hate to Julius Randle. I really like him as a player, but sometimes I do look at the team and I go, shit, it might be better if they start Toppin there or go small ball with Cam Reddish at the 4. It probably makes more sense. So if you actually do this trade, it is somewhat okay and acceptable if you were to offer the New York Knicks Duncan Robinson, Victor Oladipo, a first-round pick, and a couple second-round picks. I do think the New York Knicks accept that because I think they are moving in a direction that has their team as a much more, pace and space type of team while also playing really good defense. I think that's what Tom Thibodeau has really been trying to accomplish, and sometimes Randle, again, with his isolation type of game, does stop that. But if you were to move on from Randle, add some more shooters, again, move Toppin to being that 4, move Cam Reddish to playing some small ball 4 as well, you do free up another wing spot there, which I think Duncan Robinson can take and can actually be pretty valuable. Like, if you think about it, if you have a really good isolator on the floor, you could honestly put an Evan Fournier, a Duncan Robinson, Obi Toppin, all around them who are very nice 3-point shooters, who could definitely capitalize off that. Something that's acceptable. And I do think the New York Knicks might accept that. And then if you're the Miami Heat, you're looking at it the point of view like, Jimmy Butler needs a hand. Like, he needs a hand scoring. If you look at the playoffs last year, the only player he, relied on to help him with scoring was Tyler Hero. And Tyler Hero sometimes flunked out. But that's just because of age and inexperience, this and that. If you want to give Jimmy Butler a real mature hand who has taken a team to a playoffs before, who can act as your second option, I think Julius Randle is actually the player to maybe go with. And let's be honest, Randle's not the worst defender. Some people say he's a terrible defender. He's just not. He's a decent defender. He just, sometimes he stops the game. But if you're looking for an elite scorer who can, again, I'm not saying elite as in all the time elite. I'm saying when he's on, Julius Randle is an elite scorer. I think, you probably got your guy if you're the Miami Heat. And it's a trade that kind of makes sense for them. And they also really need a power forward, to be honest. So I actually really like this move. Of course, if you haven't already, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to comment your thoughts and opinions down below. If you guys think the Miami Heat should, of course, try and trade for Julius Randle, do you guys think the New York Knicks should try and trade him away? Of course, I would very much like to know. Of course, if you haven't already, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.